Some high-profile Democrats talking up President Biden ahead of his expected 2024 run for the White House. However, Democrat voters may not be feeling it. A new poll finding only a quarter want Biden to seek re-election. 44% say he should step aside. 30% say they are undecided. And when it comes to an alternative to Joe Biden, 51% say they have no idea. Look at those faces, though, on the screen. You know most of them. But people have no idea who should be running for president besides Biden, and they don't want him. Just 13% back Vice President Kamala Harris. Former candidates like Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders don't even break 10%. Cassie Smedley, former executive director of America Rising PAC, and Desiree Tims, former Democratic congressional candidate from Ohio. Great to have you both. Cassie, why is it, do you think, that on the Democratic side, when you talk to voters, they don't want Biden and they can't think of anybody else?
Yeah, I think at a bare minimum, they're saying things are not going well. And if we have any chance of getting another 4 years with a Democrat in the White House, we need to make some changes. Just personally, my family would fare better if we made some changes. But as someone who wants to support a Democrat, not me talking about the polling, that we need to make some changes because you can't give Republicans that clear line of attack. Obviously, candidates matter on both sides. But right now, whoever the Republican nominee is can clearly say, this isn't, you know, your prices are going up at the grocery store. It's too much to get a loan. Everything is going wrong right now, and there's only one guy to point to. But I think it is interesting that they can't figure out what the solution is, and maybe that's because Democrat solutions are not the answer to what ails us right now in our country.
You know, why not Kamala Harris? Why doesn't she come to mind for people immediately, do you think, Desiree?
I think because President Joe Biden is still president. The reality is, until he announces the will he or won't he, will continue. But we all know, and First Lady Joe Biden has already hinted that President Biden is gearing up and getting ready to run for re-election. And we know that Vice President Kamala Harris will be on the ticket with him. And President Biden's policies are popular. And once he gets out there, and once the surrogates get out there and they start talking to the Americans about $35 insulin caps, the CHIPS Act, jobs being created all around the country, people are going to vote for Joe Biden again.
So, Desiree, I thought you might have started with Kamala Harris only has 36% approval rating, which is below the president's. Maybe that's why people didn't choose her. And why does he actually have to sell his economy if it's so good for people? It is a conundrum, but 20 days of him on the road. Let's see if it makes a difference. This is the sort of thing that worries Democrats. President Biden, just moments before addressing the Nashville, Tennessee elementary school shooting. Watch.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not.
That was before he mentioned those children and those 3 adults who were killed, shot to death inside of the Covenant School in Nashville. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie with this.
To say that he misunderstood the moment would be an understatement. You know, the president is watching, you would hope, before he comes down there. And to be coming down to joking about the fact that he's Jill Biden's husband and was looking for chocolate chip ice cream is hardly the way to start it. There's no room to joke in that circumstance at all, and certainly not from the President of the United States.
No room to joke, no room to choke, because that's what that looked like. Desiree, why does that happen?
I wasn't in the room, so I can't speak to
Do you have to
the
be
environment
in the room to see that the president started with ice cream over children killed? I don't think you have to be there. I think you could be right where you are right now.
President Biden is the only person who moved on gun legislation, and it is the Republican Party that are blocking the opportunity for us to finally do something about guns. We talked about it earlier in the show. You should watch. We are still, I live in Ohio. It's Republican dominated, and I can tell you after the Dayton shooting, the Republicans here have done absolutely nothing, and we are tired of seeing our children being slaughtered by assault weapons and AR-15s in the name of the Second Amendment. It's not right. We have to do something about these guns.
President
we
of
have
your
to do
party,
something.
President of the United States, but president specifically of your party started with ice cream over anything that you said. He did get to the politics that you're talking. about. But it was more important that he mentioned the name Jenny's Ice Cream, which he does a lot, by the way. A lot. It's his focal point. Cassie.
Yeah, I mean, and also just talk about tone deaf. He mentions the brand of ice cream that's very expensive and most people can't afford, just like Nancy Pelosi did it. But to push back on what Desiree is saying, and Harris, I saw it earlier in your show. It was a bipartisan effort. When Democrats controlled every branch of the government, it was Republicans who actually said, okay, we will sit at the table and talk about this. No such thing happens on the other side when Republicans say, but let's talk about this holistically. We moved here. Now you need to come and talk about the root causes of what's happening in our country that is causing the mental impact, the mental illness that people are going and doing this and creating these heinous, tragic crimes. And they won't talk about that because that would be tantamount to admitting that they have been asleep at the wheel on that. And that's the problem that so many of us take issue with, because we have to sit through watching these devastating school shootings happen over and over. No one wants them, just as your previous guest said. And yet Democrats immediately move. Within seconds, Joe Biden moved from ice cream to politics. Before even mourning the death of those children and their teachers, within seconds. And that's how you know that nothing's going to happen, because they are so insistent on sticking to their political talking points. And that's what's so maddening to moms out here.
Yeah. It's also how you know it was on
it's policy
purpose.
change, and Republicans actually said they won't do nothing.
He
The
knew which
Republican
order
from
that he
Tennessee
wanted
said
to
he
talk
can't
in.
do anything today.
All right,
So.
let's move to this. Comedian Bill Maher blasting environmentalists as hypocrites during yesterday's episode of his podcast.
I can stand being a bad environmentalist, because we all really are. I cannot stand being a hypocrite. And every single person who can fly in a private jet, we all do it. It's irresistible. And so that's, again, something that looks bad to someone who's in the middle or leaning right, when lefties are hypocrites.
Well, I think he puts it well here, Desiree. It's not whether or not you fly private. We're a capitalist nation, sure. It's the fact that those who are flying private are preaching to everybody else that they shouldn't. Your thoughts?
Well, I can't speak to how irresistible flying private jets are. I'm not in that tax bracket. But what I can say is we all have to do something about climate change, because we are feeling the effects of it. And it's the poor people who won't be able to afford to just pack up and move when another tornado touches down in their town.
So well put. Cassie?
Yeah, I agree. It's affecting the common person while the rich just continue to get richer. Look at who is benefiting from the policies that they are pushing on us. Look at what companies and governments are doing with your money. We do want free market solutions because we see the hypocrisy, and it's not that we don't want a climate solution for our future and our children's future. It's just that we don't want it thrust upon us with the only one option that benefits only one side of this, and that seems to be the rich and well-connected.
Well, it's interesting to hear you both get to that point. You wouldn't know how that irresistibility about that flying would feel. But clearly they are benefiting right now and then preaching to the rest of us, environmentalists who just want us to listen and do what they tell us to do. Good to see you both. Thank you. And we'll all pray for Nashville together. I hear it in both your voices.